Welcome back, everybody. Here we are again, another 2-game slate, and happy Friday. You guys are ready for some more action this weekend. It's been kind of light for sports through the week because we're done with NBA, and I'm sure Adam's sad about that, but happy about a 2-game slate. Am I right, Adam?
Yeah, at least we kind of have pitching today. Yesterday was one of the more brutal shows I've done, just that, as far as trying to find things to talk about, because we didn't have listed pitchers in the Houston game. So I'm at least excited to have pitchers on our 2-game slate.
Yeah, me and Emac were struggling to fill an hour on Live Before Lock, but we did. We figured it out. Emac had a couple stories as always, so we were able to set up, send everyone up to lock. So going back to yesterday, I was really interested. I hadn't been looking at lineup study too much. But I just wanted to see what the winning lineup was. I know Kershaw didn't pitch well, but he's in every one of the top lineups, and he was 86% owned, 86.7% owned in the MLB 200K pennant push. So I didn't do a show with you yesterday. How did you handle yesterday's situation if you played, or how would you have?
I skipped the slate once.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, I probably wasn't going to play anyway, and then once Snell wasn't starting, I was just like, I'm not doing this. But yeah, I think, like I said on the show, that I thought I would just have a lot of Kershaw, because with it being a 2-game slate, you could easily get a couple of Atlanta bats against him anyway. Mm-hmm. It was just in terms of raw points, where you, even if Kershaw does have a mediocre game and scores, let's say 12 points or something, I don't even know what he ended up at, but those 12 points, there's a really good chance that they're, a lot higher than any other pitcher on the slate, especially because you didn't expect Bryce Wilson to do well. So there was a really high probability, especially we have to wrestle the two pitchers too, that Kershaw was still going to be the top pitcher, with any sort of mediocre or better performance. And there was nothing prohibiting you from taking Marcell Ozuna and Acuna or something against him. So I didn't really see a really good path to avoiding him even at high ownership.
Yeah, and I didn't play on DK yesterday. I played some on FanDuel. And I basically just went all in on Kershaw. I think I had 1 or 2 Bryce Wilson lineups out of 150. And so looking at this DK tournament again, Kershaw almost 87% owned, kind of low, lower than I thought. I think people just got too cute. I think there was probably a better than 87% chance he was the top 2 pitcher yesterday. You basically needed him to get negative points and pick the right relievers and leave a bunch of salary on the table, or he was going to be in the winning lineup. And so that's how I looked at it. Do you think he was better than 87% chance to be a top 2 pitcher?
Yeah, I think what you said is really important, because so often you'll see, if you're in Slack chat or probably YouTube chat, I don't know, I don't read that, but you see people all the time oh, he's X% owned, I need to fade him. And that's as far as their thinking goes. And that's where it's a problem. The good tournament players are thinking in terms of what are his chances of success versus how owned is he. Just looking at the raw ownership number doesn't tell you a lot. And when you think through yesterday's slate, especially, obviously once Snell wasn't pitching either, you have to come up with a path that gives you a chance to beat the Kershaw lineups. It's not just not having Kershaw. It's one thing, I would love to not roster a 90% owned pitcher and hope that he fails. But when he fails, how am I winning? And there wasn't really a clear answer yesterday. You're, I guess, rostering Bryce Wilson, and then you're still guessing at a reliever. So you're still it's still a really low probability play. And there was probably a higher chance that you were probably better off just having Kershaw everywhere on the 2-pitcher site than fading him at 87%.
Yeah. And so looking at Alex's ownership or exposures, and then Rinpack, I saw he had a lineup near the top. They both went all in on Kershaw, and then just pretty flat down the line for bats with the chalkier bats. I'm assuming if you click into some of these lineups, you're getting 1 to 2 guys that are, less than 10% owned in their lineups. Guys like, let's see, who Austin Riley was 4%. Dansby Swanson was 6.6%. Kike Hernandez was under 10, as was Tucker and Adames. So they were heavy on some of the lower guys, and the winning lineup had Kershaw in it, as did pretty much every lineup near the top, with Bryce Wilson. Kershaw, as who Steven pointed out in chat, only had 6.45 DK points, but it didn't really matter as long as he was close to a top 2 pitcher, he was going to be in the winning lineup. So this guy had a 3-man Rays stack. Justin Turner one off, Marcell Ozuna one off against Kershaw with 37 points. That was obviously key to get the one bat that went completely nuts, even if you had Kershaw in the lineup, and then Correa, Springer, Altuve. So nothing ridiculous. I think good to see that, like if you were playing this and you played 1 or 2 hitters against Kershaw, you didn't group yourself out of the potential winning lineup. So I don't know if this was the exact optimal, but it had to be up there as pretty darn close. And he banked it solo by 3 points. So
that's impressive on a 2-game slate with 1.5 pitchers.
Yeah, and the guy in second had a split second with a 150 maxer, and he had just one lineup. So it can be done, although I wouldn't recommend trying to chase after these big tournaments with just one lineup. Maybe this was a cash lineup, honestly, for H8FOZG8. I don't know if that's an acronym for something. If it is, I have no clue what it is for. So yeah, really, really weird slate. But glad we're done with that. We do have some real pitchers today. We do have projections up. I believe we should have ownership up by now. If not, it'll be coming with a couple minutes. Yeah, 10 minutes ago. So right as we got on. So go check that out if you guys haven't yet and you are premium members. We do have MLB Top Stacks tool today for free. So we unlock that for everyone. We unlock a piece of premium content for free most days. And for NFL today, we have the rankings. So you can see who Alex has as some of his top plays. The rankings are derived directly from the projections. So just kind of a tiered system instead of a actual point system. And you can get access to the rankings with the NFL Express tool. NFL Express package, not the Express tool. You can get the NFL Express Top Stacks tool with that package, $395. And we basically just added all of our Showdown content to that. So if you guys are looking to get in on some Showdown, you don't necessarily have to buy the Platinum package. We obviously want you to come and hang out and get access to everything, get access to FC. But if you're looking to just spend a few dollars a week and get all of our Showdown stuff for free or included, NFL Express is how you do that. $395 per week. What else do we have going on for today? I think that's about it. Just want to take a quick look at lineup study, and we already did that. So let's start with the Houston Astros and the Tampa Bay Rays. Houston hanging around here. First team I saw since the 2003 Red Sox to go down 3-0 and then force a game 6. So I was a little bit surprised to hear that. Obviously that 2003, or was it 2004? Maybe it was 2004.
I know I was a freshman in high school, so it must have been 2004.
Okay, so 2003 was the year with the Bartman game, and then the Red Sox blew a 3-2 lead, I think, in Yankee Stadium or something like, and those were on consecutive days. And then the next year, the Red Sox down 3-0. So yes, 2004. It's been a while since we've had this. So now the pressure kind of goes back to the Rays, but they do have their ace on the mound, Blake Snell, $8,700 on DK, going up against Framber Valdez, who's been awesome. I think he's probably overperformed some of his underlying numbers. I don't know if I've talked to you about Valdez too often because I haven't done too many shows, but what's your thoughts on Valdez just in general? Is he overperforming or is he this good? Like, should he be a guy with a 30% K rate?
Yeah, I kind of struggle with him. He's sort of like the opposite of Jose Urquidy for me. Josh and I talked the other day about how Urquidy's strikeout numbers just fell off the face of the earth. And normally when something like that happens, especially in a shorter season, you would expect that it's just kind of a blip on the radar, but strikeout numbers stabilize quickly. And so I'm inclined to think that he's improved. I mean, you look at Valdez last year, 19% strikeout percentage to righties, 24.7% to lefties. This year he's at 24% to righties, 32.5% to lefties. So a sizable jump against both hitters from both sides of the plate. Doing a really good job limiting power, particularly against lefties, but also 114 ISO to righties. I think he's improved. I don't really know the reason for his improvement. I haven't dug into it, but I do think he's improved. Like across the board, his numbers are just really good. And I think that there's probably something to it.
Yeah. And he's had all these like massive upside starts. So I think that's what I get confused with. Like, he's got a 26.4% K rate. I think I said 30, but it's a little bit lower than what I thought. 26.4%. And he's had a couple games with 11 strikeouts going 6-7 innings. So he's got massive upside. Obviously here you're just looking for a good performance and to outscore some of the other pitchers on the slate. 4.3 implied total against Valdez. I know you don't have to choose between one of these two guys, but if you could only play one, Valdez or Snell, would it be Snell?
Yeah, I think I would still lean towards Snell. The matchup against Houston obviously is difficult. Even when they weren't hitting well, they're a team that doesn't strike out a lot. And so they still weren't really a favorable matchup for DFS purposes. And then now they have started to come around at least a little bit with the bats. But Snell still does come in with the higher strikeout percentage at 31%. Walk percentage and home runs are higher than for Valdez. So maybe a little bit more of like a boom or bust spot when you factor in the matchup and Snell's tendencies. But at a similar price point, I tend to just prefer the guy with the higher strikeout percentage. That said, I'll roster both of these guys together in a lot of lineups.
For sure. And yeah, I think that's a great way to go. Looking at the projections here, I'm surprised that Snell is so much lower projected than Valdez. So Alex seems to prefer Framber Valdez pretty convincingly. He's cheaper, way better value, and just way higher raw point projection by over 3 points. So I wonder if that means he thinks that Snell is going to be limited. Do you have any concerns about that? I thought he was on full rest, but I'm checking it right now.
Yeah, no real concerns. He hasn't pitched since I think the 5th. Since the 11th. Wait, what? DraftKings says he threw 0 pitches in 5 innings.
That's pretty difficult to do.
Yeah, I don't think that happened. But either way, he's on normal rest. I don't, and he went 5 innings in that start, so I don't think he's limited. And
threw 105 5 days ago. So
yeah,
I wonder if we have the totals flipped in that, like the run totals against. But yeah, I don't know. He's got Valdez at over 19 points and Snell under 16. So we'll see if that changes by the time we get to lock. But I would have thought that Snell would be the better option. We'll see. If it doesn't change, I would end up with more Valdez. But just looking at this, I thought I would end up with a ton of Snell. So these two are probably the best options on regardless. We don't know who's going for Atlanta. Maybe we have a better idea because we now do have a total for this game. But we'll talk about that in a bit. What about bats here? Is there a team you prefer to stack? Ownership-wise, it looks like a bunch of the bats on both sides are up near the top. Some of the Houston getting a bunch of ownership are Bregman, and then we've got Springer, Mlb Dfs, cheap and dual position eligibility. Any of these guys stick out to you?
I think the Houston bats are actually, I set up it for Snell and I do for the strikeout upside, but I think that the Houston bats are also appealing because of Snell's not major, but propensity to give up home runs at least a little bit this year. 1.8 home runs per 9 this season, 1.64 expected ISO to righties is a little bit lower than his 188 actual ISO. So it looks like he got a little bit unlucky there so far, but also, would still be expected to give up some power. And you have such good power bats in this lineup from the right side with Springer, Altuve, Bregman, Correa. So looking to those guys, as a one-off or two-off, basically, you can still obviously roster Snell and roster those guys. Valdez did a much better job of limiting power, 0.64 home runs per 9 this season. His expected ISO to righties, 152, is a bit higher than his actual 114. So got probably a little lucky in that department, but still the expected number is a little bit lower than Snell. So I think you're looking at right-handed bats from Tampa. Arozarena is playing out of his mind. Seems like he might just be really, really good. Obviously had a good regular season as well, and it's carried over into the postseason. So his salary's come up. He's one of those players where I don't entirely know what to make of it because he's outperforming his projections, but projections are just projections, obviously, and he's played really well all year long. So, might just be a really good player, and 4,700 for him looks reasonable against Valdez. Yandy Diaz, if he's in the lineup, Hunter Renfroe, I would like a bit. The problem with Renfroe is that he's probably going to get pinch hit for in like the 5th inning.
Right. Did Jack? You didn't play, but Jock was bad. I don't know if you saw. I actually ended up getting pinch hit for it because I bumped him down manually in the projections. Like we hadn't seen him bat up there for like years. It seems like, or actually he had he'd hit leadoff a couple times, I think, but it just looked like a weird Dodgers lineup, and they were going to get him out after he faced the righty the first 2 around. So in chat, if you guys know, so I don't have to look it up, let me know if Jock actually came out of that game early. Rosarena, yeah, every day, and we've got him at the lowest owned bat in this. So, I mean, there's probably like people are going to click on that box, casual people, and just throw him in there and think that he's, Barry Bonds. So I think he's going to be probably a little bit higher than what we have him at. Yeah, the price increase is certainly going to get some people off of him. I haven't been riding the Rosarena train, so my accounts have been dwindling in terms of the money in them. But yeah, batting second here, $4,700 against the lefty. I think pretty good spot if his ownership stays somewhat in check. Going up against Snell here, there's not really any Astros bats that I feel like I need to point out, I guess. The guys that I think I would be interested in playing are the good players, meaning Bregman, Altuve, and those guys are all going to get quite a bit of ownership because the pricing is pretty soft. Would you be looking to play a bat against these guys? And would you go up to 2, I guess, on Fantasy Cruncher? Would you allow 2 bats against these guys? Yeah,
I'd be fine with going for 2. I think I mentioned it when we did a show the other day, but I've been using the boost feature on Fantasy Cruncher to deal with this because with it being a 2-game slate, I don't want to just restrict every lineup I make to like 0 hitters against my pitcher or 1 hitter against my pitcher or whatever. But I have been using it to just make it so that if a pitcher is in the lineup, the hitters against him are deducted, X%. And that makes it so that I'm getting a mix. It's not just going to give me all, like if I set the max at 2 hitters, it's not going to give me all lineups with 2 hitters that have, against my pitcher because it projects well. So it'll give me a nice mix and then I can go through and choose from those. But yeah, I'm fine with taking a couple of hitters, especially again on a slate like this. I think it opens the door for it a little bit more too, because the pitching in the Atlanta game is so questionable as far as how deep they're going to be able to go. You have presumably Josh Tomlin, and then you have Dustin May, who threw like an inning and 2/3 in relief three or 4 days ago. So there's legit question marks on how deep those guys are going to go into the game. So there is a pretty decent chance that Snell and Valdez are the 2 optimal pitchers. And even if they don't throw great games, I guess is the point I'm making. Like if these guys both go 5 innings, give up like 2 or 3 runs, there's still a pretty decent chance they're the 2 pitchers that you want. So taking hitters against them really isn't a problem to me. Yeah, I mean, the boost feature is really, really good for this. I don't know if we've talked about it yet. Maybe on Wednesday we mentioned it, but what you would do if you guys haven't seen the new tool on Fantasy Cruncher, which you can get as an add-on with your Awesemo Plus subscription. Dave made a new tool where you can key boost guys. Essentially, you can key a guy and say, if this guy's in the lineup, I want to decrease the projection for X amount of players and list all those other guys. So for a hitter, for a hitter against a pitcher, you might say, all right, I can allow up to 2 players against my pitcher, but if I have Blake Snell in the lineup, I would I would decrease Altuve's projection. I would decrease basically everyone in the Astros. You use like 10% or something. Yeah, I use 10%. 20%. Yeah. Random number that seems to work out pretty well.
Yeah, and you can play around with it. Like you can do multiple crunches, as you guys know. So
really good for every sport too. So easily the biggest addition Fantasy Cruncher's had since I've been using it.
Yeah, I agree. I love that tool. I just want to make sure I'm using it correctly and not basically grouping myself out of stuff that I shouldn't be, especially in NFL. So I'll be using the weekend to figure out some of that stuff.
It'll be really good for basketball too. I'm excited to like actually be able to pair point guards without setting a rule to pair point guards.
Yeah, like for short, I was talking with EMAC. We got on some tangents yesterday, and for that, you would negatively correlate a guy and his backup on like a shorter slate, so you allow it, but it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, I would do that, and then also on the bigger slates, like you can just set it so for every point guard that projects more than 38 fantasy points, the opposing point guard gets a 10% bump or something like that, to like get you the built-in in-game correlation without forcing your lineups all to be like that.
So meaning that if
Chris Paul is playing Russell Westbrook, and Chris Paul's in a lineup, I bump Russell Westbrook's projection.
Because he's not going to, like, if he's playing that hard offensively, he's not going to be able to shut down Westbrook? Or
because if there's some positive correlation within a game. Like if a game is really high scoring and competitive and your highly projected guard exceeds value, there's a good chance that the top scorer on the other team is doing it as well.
Interesting. I never thought about it like that. But yeah, I guess there's definitely some correlation.
Yeah, it's just like there's not enough correlation that I've ever wanted to set the rule and say like all of my lineups have to have like competing point guards basically, because then I'm grouping myself out of a lot of stuff. But using the boost gets you like a nice mix of stuff. Are
there like serial game stackers in NBA DFS?
Yeah, it's actually become more prevalent. I think it might be a sharp strategy. I don't know. There's definitely like it's still a small group, but of what I consider sharp people that do it. Okay. Yeah, I still don't totally buy into it, but it's becoming a more prevalent strategy.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe I should do that. See if I can make some money at NBA DFS, but probably not, even with the tools on the site. I think we're good on that game. Let's talk about the Braves and the Dodgers in just a bit. But first, we are sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. You guys see in the upper right-hand corner. Yahoo is a great place to play because if you like paying less money to the site, Yahoo is the place to be. So you're going to see 16% management fees or rate, they call it on other sites. Yahoo's running out 11.1% for the biggest tournament this week, which is the NFL 200K baller and the 5K Vegas getaway. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but sounds pretty interesting. I usually throw 20 to 50 lineups in this. Probably too close to lock. I should really focus on this tournament more because of the low management fees. I mean, that's 2/3 of what you're going to pay elsewhere. It doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're paying 11% compared to 16% over the long term, that's going to save you a ton of money, and you still have a chance to win huge prizes. So it's 25K to first plus the 5K Vegas getaway.
Plus a generally softer field as well.
Yeah. Have you noticed a lot less pros play over there?
I mean, less. Yeah, it was definitely. I mean, I loved it when you didn't have the CSV upload, but even with the CSV upload, I mean, you still have like you still have guys over there that you'll recognize from DraftKings or FanDuel, but I would definitely guess that a higher percentage of the field is not pros than on DraftKings or FanDuel.
Yeah, and they've got like these lower dollar tournaments, like 10 and 25 max tournaments, which are where you're going to find elsewhere, but again, just lower management fees. Like on the $1.25 max 12% management fee, that's 3/4 of what you're going to pay elsewhere. So you're just getting you're paying less to play over on Yahoo is the bottom line. They do have CSV edit, as Adam said, so they're making it really easy to play over there, especially if you're a casual. Good place to learn DFS and use our tools on the site. Let's go to the other game here. Dodgers and Atlanta Braves, 5.6 implied total for the Dodgers, 3.5 for the Braves. Are you buying into the narrative that Kershaw stinks in the postseason? Because I know that's going to be a popular thing on talk shows today if you listen to any sports radio.
No, I don't buy into it. I mean, even yesterday, and I didn't watch the game, but just from kind of seeing updates on Twitter, I'm pretty sure it was the third time through the lineup he got beat up. I mean, from what I gathered on Twitter, it was kind of like, why is Kershaw still in this game at this point? More so than, oh, he's doing it again. But yeah, I mean, I don't. There's no reason to buy into it. Like, he's facing better competition in the postseason, so obviously the matchups are going to be tougher, but it's not like in baseball you play so many games and everything. It's not like throughout his career he's just gotten really lucky and faced like cupcake teams in the regular season and then he can't get quality opponents out or something. Like, it's stupid.
Yeah, 100%. I assumed you were going to have that answer, so that's why I asked you. Like, it's still too small of a sample. I don't know how many starts he's made in the playoffs, but it's not enough to where you can say, yeah, this guy's just a different player. Maybe maybe he hears that talk and there's some mental aspect to it, but there's really no way to quantify why he would be this much worse in the playoffs. I know people point to ERA, but He's also had starts with like complete game shutouts and like 8 innings, 10 Ks, like recently too. But they just come in like the divisional series. It's just been random where he gets into the league championship series and he runs into one bad start, and now thinks he's a choker or whatever.
Right. It's kind of, there's definitely a lot of confirmation bias there at this point as well. Like you said, he goes out there and dominates in the NLDS and whatever, it's Clayton Kershaw, and then he has a bad start, and like, oh yeah, see, we were right, he can't pitch in the playoffs.
Right. Okay, so the line on the your guys' screen is way off. I just made it up. I had no clue who was starting for the Braves. I still don't know. I'm still not seeing a projected starter, so maybe Adam knows. But it looks like it's going to be Dustin May for the Dodgers with a big total behind him, 5.6 runs, as I mentioned earlier. How long do you expect Dustin May to go? Because he hasn't really pitched. He hasn't really been stretched out. 7,200, I guess, is probably in play as the third best option, depending on who goes for the Braves. And whoever does go for the Braves, they might not go deep, and it's a big total against. So might not be a guy we're interested in anyways. But what are your thoughts on May here at 7,200?
Yeah, so I think May's tough because obviously he was a starter during the season, but at the same time, he hasn't thrown more than 55 pitches in a game since September 22nd. So you're going on a month now of him doing anything starter-like. Threw an inning and 2/3 on the 12th, so he's on short rest as well, although that he threw 16 pitches there. So, I mean, that realistically could just have been like a throw day for him, basically. So I don't want to read in too much to that and say he's on short rest. He can't be used as a starter because that very easily could have just been his bullpen day. So I think that, like, my assumption would be that they're trying to get 3 or 4 innings out of him. I don't know, maybe he can go more, but that would be my assumption. And at 7,200, it's still going to make him look okay on this slate. Strikeout numbers for him in general aren't where you would hope they'd be. I still don't really understand it. His minor league strikeout numbers were never great. His major league strikeout numbers aren't great. His stuff is fantastic. So I really don't know why he doesn't get strikeouts, but it just hasn't really happened yet for him. But at 7,200, again, you're talking about only having 2 other pitchers really that are actual starters with Valdez and Snell. Right now, Fangraphs and DraftKings both have Josh Tomlin listed for the Braves. I don't know if that's actually going to be the case or not, but even if it is, you're not really expecting him to go deep. So for all intents and purposes, you have 2 real starters on this slate. And so I'm still willing to take a chance on May, especially if his ownership's relatively low.
Yeah, and we've got May at almost 11 projected DK points. So he's way more in play than like a Bryce Wilson yesterday. And we saw how that worked out. He had over 20 DK points. So I think it's reasonable to assume that May has a good chance of being a top 2 pitcher if Valdez or Snell gets blown up here. So
on a side note, hilarious to me that Bryce Wilson had a really good start yesterday, because I know Josh played like 35% Kyle Wright the day before, and then he didn't play yesterday. But I assume he would have had a bunch of Bryce Wilson if he played. So that kind of made me happy.
Yeah, we had Bryce projected for like 6 points. So obviously huge ceiling performance based on what we had him doing in a median outcome. So yeah, crazy stuff can happen. And the one thing I was saying yesterday with the 4 guys that were like the starters, so you had Kershaw and then the 3 other guys that were basically going to go 2 to 3 innings, and Wilson ended up going 5, I think. We knew those guys were pitching, so those were the 4 guys that I was playing. Like, we had no clue what was going to happen afterwards. If there were 5 runs in the first inning, that might have blown up their plans for their relievers. And so Wilson ended up working out.
Yeah. My guess with Wilson too was actually that he was going to just pitch through whatever he ran into, because they had already blown the bullpen like the day before. So I thought that he kind of would just eat it no matter how things were going.
Yeah. So same thing goes with May. I think we were talking about on Wednesday. Dodgers are in a hole in this series. They're down 3-1. They're facing elimination. If May gets in trouble early, I'm not sure how long of a leash he's going to have. But if he's pitching badly anyways, you're probably not winning. So it probably doesn't matter that much what's going on with him. Just want to note that he is projected for a bunch of ownership. He has got a decent projection. So he is in play. I don't think Tomlin's going to be in play. I would imagine if you look at the exposures of a bunch of pros tonight on lineup study tomorrow morning, you will see them with basically the allotted 200% pitcher ownership going to May, Valdez, and Snell. And so that's probably what I would be doing over on DraftKings tonight. If it is Tomlin, which specific Dodgers are you going with here? Any guys that really stick out for what Tomlin throws?
So Tomlin actually was pretty solid this year. He struck out 22%, only walked 5%. I haven't built lineups yet, but I'm not completely convinced that if he's relatively low owned, I wouldn't roster some Tomlin if he is getting the start. Just because if you do get 3 innings of him at 5,400, potentially he could be fine. But that would pretty much only be if I'm able to get to a lot of bats that I want. And I guess that does kind of hurt that he's facing the Dodgers, since that's the bats that I'd be paying up for. But that being said, throughout his career, he's struggled with right-handed power, and that's been the case this year as well. 195 actual ISO, 251 expected ISO to righties this year. Last year, 188 expected ISO to righties. The year before that, 257. So there's nothing wrong with going to the really good left-handed hitters in the Dodgers lineup either. But I think that looking to Mookie Betts, looking to Justin Turner, looking to Will Smith is going to be where you really want to be. Maybe a little bit of a bump for like AJ Pollock and Chris Taylor as well at a little bit lower ownership.
What would you say the odds are that the Dodgers come back and win this series? Just like percentage chance.
Yeah. So it's 3-1 right now.
3-1.
25.
25%. Okay, I was going to go even lower. So I'm looking at the World Series futures on OddsShopper, and there's a couple. Well, FanDuel has the Dodgers at plus 160. So either we haven't pulled everything correctly, or FanDuel just hasn't updated their futures for whatever reason. So don't bet that. There's plus 500 you can find on Sugar House and DraftKings Sportsbook. So that would be a bet for you then, right? If you say 25% chance, and they've got them at plus 500, they've got them at 1 in 5 chance.
Yeah, I dropped it to, I said 20 to 25. So
okay.
Yeah,
but it's in the range, right? If you bet, do you bet?
No,
can you bet where you're at?
I can't. I'd have to go to Pennsylvania, which is like a half hour for me. So like I could bet if I wanted to, but
okay,
I don't.
Well, if betting is legal in your guys' states, oddshopper.awesemo.com is the place where you can find the best prices. So if you've got multiple sportsbooks, if you got access to them, why not go to OddsShopper and find the best price? There's really no reason not to. Like, you wouldn't want to play a guy that's 8K somewhere else and you can get him for 6K on another site if everything was equal. So that's how I look at it from a DFS perspective. But pretty crazy here. You can find on FanDuel the Braves at plus 450 to win the World Series, and then plus 500 is the best number you can get on the Dodgers. So if these are pulled correctly, that's pretty wild. I think there's some pretty good value on the Braves. You can get anywhere near that number. But yeah, 1 in 5 chance is what they're giving the Dodgers to come back here. I'm assuming that just that Vegas thinks that the Dodgers are a better team. But like 3 games in a row against another really good team. I know they're heavily favored in this game. So even if you give them this game down 3-2, it's really tough to beat this Braves team 2 times.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, like, Atlanta doesn't have a pitcher that you're going to look at and say, okay, I don't know, like, this is a tough game for the Dodgers. Like, they're going to be favored in every game, even when they get back to Max Fried. So I think that's kind of the thing. Like, the Braves are obviously still favored since they just have to win 1, but it's going to be an upset whenever the Braves win.
For sure. Yeah, today would be a massive upset. Minus 235 here for May and the Dodgers. Is there anything else you want to mention in this game from a DFS perspective? I'm looking at the ownership projections. One of the lowest owned guys, actually, I think the lowest owned guy that we have projected in the lineup right now is it Pache? They were saying the pronunciation.
Christian Pache.
Yeah, he's batting 9th for the Braves, but $3,100 outfielder. Him and Marquez, well, he's about half the ownership of Marquez right now, so I think that would be easy. Just 1v1. If you had $3,100 remaining, I think you'd take Pache.
Yeah, I've been rostering him a lot just because it's so hard to find any low-owned hitters on these slates, and plus he's cheap. So yeah, I've been rostering him a lot. His, like, the scouting grades on his hitting isn't great, but he is one of the top prospects in baseball. He is fast, like he can steal bags, and then it's not like he has no power. So I've been rostering him a lot and just hoping for the best.
When you crunch out your lineups for these 2 gamers, maybe I asked this on Wednesday, so I apologize if I did. We're repeating it, but do you set up stacks, or do you just let the optimizer run stack free because you're going to get stacked lineups regardless?
Yeah, I just run it stack free.
Okay.
Well, I think the first day that I played, I did like 3-2, but then I kind of realized that was just pointless because it's going to happen anyway. So
yeah, and as long as you're not allowing like 4 hitters against your pitcher,
right,
you probably won't run into anything too outlandish. So
yeah, like my settings have just been max 3 against my pitcher, and then using the boost tool to downgrade everyone against my pitcher. And so I'm pretty much just getting natural, a lot of like, even I know the first day, like my top ranked lineup was actually a 5-3 stack, even though I hadn't forced stats.
Okay. Oh, because you add in correlation, right?
No, it just popped.
Oh, you don't?
No. Yeah,
so
it's just the point being, with there being 4 teams, you're just naturally getting stacks anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. Interesting. I like these short slates. Even more game theory goes into it rather than just playing the best plays, rather than just 5-man stacking. You got to get close to the absolute nuts here. So I would not play Josh Tomlin or whoever goes for the Braves. I wouldn't worry about relievers and just stick to the 3 quote unquote starters, 2.5 starters that we have. If you count May in there, is not really a starter, but Top Stacks tool is free. Taking a look at that, let me refresh. Actually, I don't think I've got the updated numbers. So looking at DraftKings, we have the Dodgers as the number 1 top stack probability at almost 32%, and a 26% ownership share. They're coming in at a little bit under-owned. It's always tough on these 2 gamers, but Atlanta is the team that's coming up a little bit over-owned, and that's just because they've got some value near the bottom of their order and near the middle of their order with a bunch of 4K guys in there, but only a 3.5 implied total, so they're not expected to put up a ton of runs here. So if I'm stacking one team, I would probably look to these Dodgers, but there's a lot of work to be done after that, even if you get this right. So maybe a 3-man or a 4-man instead of your normal 5 on DK. Maybe you drop down to a 3-man or 2-man on FanDuel and just try to mix and match. So I think if you're making a handful of lineups here, I think running them without stacks would be the way to go. And, you can always choose from lineups after that. So any other strategy points you want to mention here?
Just the usual on a 2-game slate. If you're playing, especially large field tournaments, I wouldn't worry too much about how comfortable you are with your lineup or how good it looks. Like, there's just going to be so much volatility that on a 2-game slate where ownership is naturally pushed up on everyone, any kind of suboptimal thing that you do is probably going to be offset by the fact that it gives you a chance to actually like solo win a tournament.
Yeah, on these, I think it's a good exercise to just start hand building, build a lineup that you're comfortable with, and then you need to pivot 2 to 3 spots on that lineup if you're chasing down one of these big tournaments. But even in a single entry, because in single entry or 3 max, like the chalk is even chalkier. So I'm not saying get weird with your pitchers, but downgrade to like, for example, if you can get to I don't even know what's a good example here, but like the top catcher on the slate, maybe you drop down to a guy and leave $700 on the table. Something like that, because you're really only giving up like 1 or 2 points in actual projection, but the ownership gap is going to be huge. So
yeah, the one good thing about baseball, especially when you're not stacking, is it does give you 10 spots. So it's a little bit harder to dupe lineups, especially again when you're not stacking. Like when everyone's running 5-man stacks, you dupe more lineups because the 5 spots can only go so many different ways. But if you're not full stacking and you have 8 hitter spots and 2 pitcher spots, you're going to naturally dupe less. So yeah, it's just, finding 1 or 2 contrarian pivots within your lineup.
I would agree with that. And that wraps up the last 2-game slate that we'll be on for. We could have 2 more 2-game slates if these teams can keep these series alive. Astros on the brink of elimination, as are the Dodgers. Hit the like button on the way out. And if you guys can never catch our shows live, you can catch them on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. We've got channels for MLB, NBA, NFL, if you want to just get specific shows. Otherwise, just the Awesemo Daily Fantasy channel has every podcast on there that we do, including the betting show from earlier. Coming up we have the NFL Strategy Show with Josh Engelman and Alex Baker. Always a good one to go through lineup construction to build some cash GPP lineups and talk through their builds. Stardom Stidham Show with Kyle Dvorak and Matt Kajeski at 2 p.m. Eastern, 5:15 p.m. Eastern. Jason Floyd and Terry McBride lead you up to lock with this 2-gamer. So good luck tonight, everybody, and we'll see you soon.